Paris here. I have been thinking about going and live and telling this story about my own experience, and I'm really wanting to share it because I think that out of my own experience, I can help some of you as well. So, let me give you a little bit of a backstory. My husband and I had to go through IVF to conceive our three beautiful little girls, slightly biased mum, and two of them are twins. So this was 2000 and what so we went so I had my first daughter through IVF in 2012 and I had the twins in 2014. So 2014 was a really interesting year for me. Not only did I become a mother of three kids under 2.5, and of course two of which were twins, but I also spent a large portion of the twins' pregnancy on bed rest in hospital. So we live in a small coastal town in Tasmania, and the closest hospital wasn't able to take me. So what happened was at 24 weeks, I went in for a scan, just a routine scan to check on the twins. And they told me then that I would need to go to hospital straight away. And it looked like the twins would be coming, anytime now. And so the closest hospital that would take me was at that time, because of roadworks that were happening, was about 4.5 hours away. So they said, you can go home and pack your bags, but you need to get to that hospital as soon as you can. So my husband wasn't around. He'd just started a new job, so he was in a town about 2 hours away. And I rang him and told him the story. And he said, okay, well, I'll meet you at that hospital tomorrow. So my mother drove me. I had to say goodbye to my little girl, who was 2, and I knew that I would most likely not be seeing her again for quite some time. If the twins decided to stay tucked in, that I probably wouldn't be seeing her again now until after the twins were born, because the doctors had said that I wouldn't be allowed to leave the hospital. So I said goodbye to my little girl through a lot of tears and with the help of a beautiful daycare centre here where I live. And in the end, my husband met me halfway to the hospital. And so my mum drove me part of the way. He met me and we continued the rest of the journey down. And when we got to the hospital, the realities were that it looked like my body was going to try and go into labour soon. But we wanted to do everything that we could to try and keep these little babies tucked inside, because it was just far too early for twins. They were tiny little babies at this stage to be born. And so my job then became almost like an incubator to just keep growing these little babies. And so in the end, I continued to grow the babies for almost another 7 weeks. So they came when they were just beyond 30 or close to 31 weeks. And but there was 30 weeks. And so for 7 weeks, I was pretty much in essence doing my own version of social distancing and quarantine, because I was not allowed to leave the hospital. I was basically on bed rest the entire time. I didn't have I had one family member that lived in this town, beautifully came and visited me maybe once a week, which I'm so grateful for. But because of the needs of my daughter, my husband wasn't really able to come and spend much time with me, and none of my friends were in that town. So over the period of 7 weeks of being in this hospital, I had a few visitors, let's say maybe half a dozen visitors over the 7 weeks. My husband would maybe come down and try and see me once a week. But there were many days on end where I wouldn't see anyone except the nursing staff when they would come and take my blood pressure or do something like that. And I wasn't allowed to leave my little hospital room or head out for a walk or do anything like that. I think the longest once without a visitor was close to the 2-week mark. So I think that, and I remember the nursing staff saying to me how well I was coping with the situation that I was in, because of the fear for the babies and me missing my daughter and the uncertainty of what was going to happen with the rest of the pregnancy, and just because it was such an unusual circumstance, just having to be on bed rest for that time too on my own. And so I used to describe it I didn't really have a word to describe it, but now that there's been so much talk about social distancing and quarantining ourselves, it was really very much like that. It was still it's a very similar experience. I mean, the nurses could come and take my blood pressure, um, but they were busy. They weren't just coming to sit on the ward and talk with me. So I was very much alone and very much unable to do what I literally just had to walk into work or ring work and say that I wouldn't be able to come back for well, hopefully now the babies would be born healthy, and the next time I'd be back was after maternity leave. So there was a shock exit from work, a shock departure from my life and my home, and the reality as I knew it. And so I've written a list of some of the things that I quickly put into place. They were very much just my coping mechanisms. But I think that if you're needing some, tools to work with while you are trying to figure out a new phase of life as it is right now, then some of these might be relevant for you. So I'm just going to list through them. And yeah, if you find them helpful, then, or any of them, then implement it. So the first thing that I did was a 20-minute meditation exercise. And to begin with, I did it every 2 to 3 hours. And then as it spaced out and I figured out I felt more calm, that I'd probably do it 3 times a day. So I had a 20-minute guided meditation about pregnancy to keep me and my babies healthy, which I did 3 times a day. I had routine. So I'd still get up pretty much a similar time. Well, the nurses would come in most mornings and wake me up, early, maybe 6:30. And so I would wake up, I'd have breakfast, and then I would go about my normal routine. I'd shower, I'd get myself ready, take care of myself. I had all my skincare. I would do all my normal routine that I would. So that routine of getting up and keeping myself going, and then knowing what time I would meditate and what time I would connect with friends on the phone, or what time I would I watched Ellen every day, so what time Ellen would come on. There were those kinds of things. So routine and continuing to take care of myself, like my skincare and that kind of stuff, was really important to me. Connection time was really important. Although for me, because I was facing uncertainty with my pregnancy, I really didn't vocalize. I mean, I was on the phone maybe with my husband and my sister and my mother and my father and a couple of friends, but the rest of the time there were probably about half a dozen friends that I let in on my life and knowing what was really happening. And I was texting them or messaging and that kind of stuff. That was enough communication and connection with me. And then my tribe, my little bubble, was maybe, again, like I said, I can think of 2 or 3 friends that were included in that with my family. And then I would speak on the phone and connect with them, at least once a day. But that was important for me. So connection was really vital. Food and nutrition was really important to me. I mean, I am a nutritionist, so this was a little bit tricky for me because I couldn't leave the hospital to get food. They weren't doing deliveries to the hospital at that time of food. So I was somewhat limited, but I created a good relationship with some of the staff at the hospital, and I modified some of the meals and would just get them to say, just bring me 2 hard-boiled eggs, or just bring a plate of salad. So I really kind of simplified the menu and the options just to kind of fit with what I felt okay with eating. And I was lucky that the hospital supported me in that. So taking control of my food and my nutrition was really important. And when someone would come to visit me, I would get them to bring in, say 2 or 3 frozen meals. I had a little freezer in my hospital room, and they would be really nutritious meals that I'd be comfortable, happy eating. And so planning out my meals is really important, but I think that's relevant to where we're at now. So food and nutrition. Supplements. I took specific supplements, obviously all my pregnancy supplements that I was going to take, but because of stress and anxiety, I also took high doses of magnesium and calcium to help keep my nervous system really calm. So my vitamins were also really important to me then. I had set times of the day that I would read to keep my mind focused and my mind busy. I think that's really relevant for where we're at right now, because our routine, life is different if work is different. And the other thing is sleep. I had a really consistent routine with. So I would still go to bed at roughly the same time because I knew I'd be waking up at the same time. So I still focused on having really good quality of sleep. So those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things I think were the really important things that helped me get through my own version of during my pregnancy. Like I said, it's 5 years ago now, but they're the things that I look back on and think, yeah, that's really what helped me get through that time, which was very much a time of not just social distancing, but more, I was isolated. I was very socially isolated at that time. And so they're the things that help me cope emotionally, physically, and mentally. And so I wanted to let you know them. And some of that it's not exactly relevant for where we're at right now, but I think those 7 things are really important things for us to think about at this particular time when life looks so different and our social experience looks so different. So let me recap them. 1 is I meditated a lot, up to every 2 hours for first week, but then eventually 3 times a day I would meditate. I had a really good routine, and I would keep taking care of myself during that. So my own self-care was a part of that routine. Connection for me was just on the phone, not even very much video calls. It was just the odd phone call, but mostly messages to help remain connected. And I was okay with being vulnerable and having tears with those people that were really close to me, like my mom and my husband and my sister and that kind of stuff, and maybe 2 friends. My food and nutrition, I would plan that and eat as well as I could with what the hospital could give me. My vitamins and my supplements are really important. Reading or activities to keep my mind really focused. And I actually did some work from my hospital bed, so I would type up patient notes and that kind of stuff, and keeping a really consistent and healthy sleep pattern. So I hope some of that is really helpful for you. Like I said, I think my experience of that pregnancy, it really was a challenging time in my life, but I think that it also taught me so much. And so I hope that some of that insight that I experienced through that can actually help you too. If you are feeling socially isolated or like you need some strategies, please feel free to reach out and and let me know. Send me a message or put a post here in this group, because that's really what I've created this for, so that you can feel more calm and supported at a time when pregnancy or trying to conceive can look really different from the way you might have imagined it to. So thank you for listening to my story. And like I said, I really do hope that you feel comfortable to reach out to me if you need it. Okay, guys, take care.